Welcome to the Beauty of Midlife Retreat, everyone. My name is Kasia BradFord, Empowerment Coach for Women and the host of this retreat. And I want to introduce you today to Rae-ann Wood-Schatz. She has been described by her clients as authentic, inspirational earth angel. She's also a speaker, an author, and a workshop facilitator. Rae-ann is the owner and president of the transformative learning venture Integrity Seminars, Coaching, and Hypnotherapy. And from an early age, this altruistic visionary knew she was meant to make a positive difference in the world. Coming from a profound conviction in her ability as spiritual beings to move beyond our limiting beliefs and debilitating behavior patterns, Rae-ann has devoted her life to her own personal growth for the advancement of her clients. Her extensive credentials include a BA in psychology and a master's in neurolinguistic programming, along with additional certifications in clinical hypnotherapy, shamanic coaching, soul retrieval specialist, a certified death walker, jumpstart coaching certification, and facilitation development. And thanks to the guiding wisdom and infinite compassion of Rae-ann, we can rediscover who we really are and live the life we've imagined, the life we truly deserve. So welcome to the retreat, Rae-ann.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So excited for this. Well, I would love to put the spotlight on you and hear a little bit about your background and how you came to come and do this work in the world and support people as you obviously have evolved so much yourself.
And that is exactly how it came to pass, is that I did what I thought I was meant to do as a young adult. I left high school, went to university, got my degree, thought, I would go on maybe and do some postgraduate work, and found myself working with uh, survivors of domestic violence. So I
Mhm.
had met a woman who said, while you're still dreaming in what the future holds, might as well put your skills to use and all of your academic training. And I started at a women's shelter and evolved inside of that process to work with sexual violence. And then I went on and started an agency together with two other women that was designed to support women once they transition. So one of the things I found in the shelter process is that we'd go to all the work to get women independent, and then 6 months later they'd be back. And
Mm.
so they often referenced um, loneliness and isolation post shelter that was causing a lot of the pull back into the relationship. And so together with two other women, started a nonprofit called Peer Support Services for Abused Women, and offered community-based support groups for women post-abuse. And so was feeling like I had done uh, pretty much everything I was supposed to do. I'd got married. At that time, I had two of my three kids. And then I hit that point where I was in my early 30s and realized that I was walking the edges of what I would call permanent burnout, and that I
Mm.
felt like I'm not sure I can do this for the rest of my life. And so someone introduced me to the courses that I now have been teaching for the last 20 plus years. And it was partway through the second level of the program that I thought, I really want to do this. I really feel
Mm.
like this is something that um, is not band-aiding, it's transformative, and it doesn't matter whether you're feeling stuck or in struggle or actually doing really well and just want to go to the next level. I saw the potential inside of the process. And so I approached the owner of the company. This was all in Calgary, and said, I'd like to be a steward of this process. And he essentially said, thanks, but no thanks. We're good. We've got lots of people. And so I just didn't go away. I continued to volunteer and be involved. I took all the rest of the courses. And then he started into an expansion phase, and there was a lot of interest here in Northern Alberta and in the Edmonton area. So he asked if I was ready to put my money where my mouth was and
Mm.
not just step in and teach, but actually take on the responsibility of running a business. So I took the leap of faith. Having come from nonprofit, I wasn't sure I was interested in entrepreneurship. I just knew the magic that this process held.
Mhm.
And so I was with him and partnered in that partnership for well over a decade, and then started to continue to expand and grow, both again individually and and professionally, and made a break from that because we were starting to teach other programs. And so I've had the benefit of adding a lot of those things in the bio that have come onto the toolkit. We've added a bunch of other programs. And so, yeah, so it's just been a beautiful journey of my own evolution and transformation and passion to be able to see people step into their power and see what it feels like to go way beyond just surviving, which was a lot of what I did in the trauma work and in the other kind of work that I was doing. I felt like it was just keeping people afloat. And so I wanted to see people go way beyond floating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love for you to touch on that a little bit, because even in the personal development space, like I obviously am a huge fan. It's made a world of difference. And if we don't know what we're looking for, and it's easy to get caught up in things that are trendy or things that the algorithm chooses for you, how do we know what to choose? So, or what questions maybe to ask of the program, so that we actually know we're stepping into something that will provide that transformation versus just, another course that we'll never do anything with.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I feel like the digital world and the algorithms have, and the bots are often pointing us in a direction. And then that big question mark of, is this the appropriate space? Because there are so many choices.
Yes.
And I feel like it's like almost anything in terms of being a good consumer is doing the research. So making sure that, I know one of the challenges with our program is because we're so experiential, which means that when people come in, it's not just me facilitating content and standing at the front of the room, teaching people ideas and concepts that can help them in their lives. Is there's some concept based work, but then there's application, instant application, which is, let's take that concept and have meaning in your life.
Mhm.
And so because a big part of what we want people to discover is the core of their programming. So what drives them and what motivates them to do what they do and to be who they are. Um, the activities are intended to help them do that deep dive into their programs and their belief systems. And so we ask our clients to not talk about the process, to not share the content of what they are experiencing when they come in. And so then they get really excited and they have this great transformation. Then they say to their people, you would love this. And it's like, well, what did you do? And it's like, well, I can't tell you.
Yes.
And so then there's the awkwardness of, well, what's going on that you can't tell us? And it's not because there's any secrecy in what we're doing. It's if the purpose is to help people dive into the core of who they are and their programming and their subconscious programs. If somebody shares the content, then they've already automatically filtered it through their filter. So they can't share it neutrally
Yes.
because they can only share it from the space of their experience. And so then they'll automatically change that for someone else. And
Mhm.
so I really, and I know that's frustrating sometimes for clients to be able to enroll the people they love. And like any good consumer, I don't know about you, but I rely a lot on reviews and testimonials
Yeah.
and being able to hear from other people, not necessarily what they did, but what they got from it. So
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
takeaways were. So then if you're looking at somebody else's and there's some consistency in what people are experiencing and what they're taking away, and those are the things that you're looking to take away in your life, then that to me is that ability to be able to, there's the whole concept of what it feels like to have something be a hell yes, inside of you instead of
Yeah.
a maybe, is this it? Is that not it? Do the research, look at what other people are saying. And then I think fundamentally checking in at an intuitive level. I think
Yeah.
we're far more intuitive than we give ourselves credit for. And
Mhm.
we can
Mhm.
sit in that quiet space of, does this feel like the right thing for me at this point in my life, and they listen to that high self, to that intuitive voice, then if you can hear that and not fear and resistance based on the unknown. A lot of
Mhm.
times we get the hesitation or the trepidation because we're just stepping into the unknown,
Yes.
and our growth happens outside the comfort zone and outside the known. That's, we could just grow with what we knew,
Yeah.
then we'd all be grown.
Yeah. So true. So well said. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I would love for you to share, because as I was reading your bio, and you help us rediscover through your work, how to reconnect with who we really are. And I find that something that I hear a lot from midlife women, especially, is this loss of identity. It's like, who am I now that the kids have gone, or, maybe I lost my job, or maybe I'm stepping into the workforce because I was taking care of my family, and I'm just so lost and I don't know who I am. How do we start reconnecting with those pieces of ourselves? And feel free to share it in the context of the work that you do, because I find your work super powerful.
Well, I feel like it is grounded in the distinction between the roles that I play and the truth of who I am. So
Mm.
the metaphor that I often use is, your diamond self. And it's the metaphor of, if you think about what we love about children, like if we think about the qualities and traits of children that we all really appreciate, it's their innocence, it's their spontaneity, it's their vulnerability, it's their authenticity, it's all of those things. And if you think about what are the qualities and traits in adults that you feel really magnetized towards, or that you feel really attracted to, is it's a lot of those same qualities.
Mhm.
And it isn't always or necessarily based on because they have a great job and a nice car and all of those things that we deem, what makes us worthy and deserving of love and respect. It's those same qualities that you possessed um, as a child, or that children possess. And so because we've all been children, those already exist within us.
Yes.
And that would be the core of that diamond self, is those qualities and traits. Um, and what happens, of course, as life happens and experience happens, depending on the family you were born into, the culture you found yourself inside of, and I definitely feel like we're at an interesting precipice with children now. Young adults have been exposed to digital media and for their entire lives, is that we start to take on this persona, or this image of what we think is supposed to be who we are, but really what they are is their roles that we play. And that our diamond self gets bogged down in the negativity, in the struggles, in the not good enough, not worthy, not deserving programming, a lot of those things that show up again, particularly if we think, didn't get enough likes, or, a lot of cyberbullying. And for those of us that are in midlife and beyond a little bit, we didn't have a lot of that.
Mhm.
We didn't have those things to contend with, and we still had our programmers. So
Yes.
even though we maybe didn't have social media programming as children, every mid midlife woman can probably remember, you know, uh, the Mean Girls experience, or some of the bullying that would come, or sometimes the ways that the masculine would treat the feminine, or watching your parents and how your parents interacted. And
Mhm.
so the rediscovery is not so much a new discovery, it's just going back to what is the core of who I am in the form of my diamond self, when I peel away back the programming.
Yeah.
So I need to go back into, and not from a place of recreating suffering and struggle, but
Mhm.
just really from that place of the magic of self-awareness of, these are the things that I've learned. These are the things that I've picked up. And maybe I haven't worked with that or worried too much about it because I've been so busy
Mhm. Mhm.
building a career, raising a family, all of those pieces. And so it's actually a beautiful space when you hit that. I mean, I would say that those are the clients here that get a lot of the most value, are women
Yeah.
between the ages of about 35 and 55, because
Mhm.
they're starting to put down some of those other pieces, and really in that curious place of, who am I, both outside of my roles and outside of my programming.
Yeah, yeah, that's so huge. It always amazes me the stuff that comes up for me when I do these interviews. So as you're saying, because yes, social media has only been around for, we'll say, a decade for me. But I just as you were saying this, and like the programs, and I just had like a flashback to, I was 19. No, yes, I was 19, and I flew back to Poland. That's where I'm from originally. And I was visiting my grandmother, and she was gonna go and take me, introduce me to her neighbors. And she said, wash your hair, because what will the neighbor, like, I guess my hair was greasy. Didn't even know, but it's just like, oh my gosh. And now like now does it flashback because I am aware that I was raised by a mother who was very like image conscious, and my grandmother was also image conscious, and for the long I had an eating disorder for 12 years. A lot of my listeners know this,
Mhm.
but it was all, like it's all these little pieces that probably created this image consciousness, right? And so we get to break that apart and realize it's not ours. And that's what I really, really love about the work that you do.
And I feel like, and especially for women, it's that considered prerequisites, and it doesn't matter often even where we come from, whether
Mhm.
we come from a European country, an Asian country, or this country, or is that pressure on women to show up in a particular way, both including the image, the how we portray ourselves, but also the nurturing, the loving, the forgiving, the kind, all of those expectations, which doesn't always leave room for a lot of emotional intelligence or a range of experience. I hear women often say part of their journey is in this process that we do is like finding their voice,
Yeah.
like really getting to that place where I do have an opinion, I do have a perspective and point of view, I do have value to contribute, as
Yeah.
opposed to just all of the details and the mechanics of the hard work and the things that I do to take care of things and people. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine undoing a lot of the do all of it, look pretty while you're doing it, right? And don't say too much. Don't interrupt the piece or whatever. So yeah, there's so much there. And yeah, that's super powerful. I would love for you to share, because before we started recording, we briefly talked about group versus individual work, or even like work. I know when I started personal development, it was me and books.
mm,
So it was one, so it took a really long time.
mhm,
One-on-one work faster with a mentor, and then definitely when I stepped into experiential training, such as that you guys offer, it was like rocket fuel.
mhm.
So I would love for you to share a little bit about that, to listeners who are like tentative or think that they can do this work alone.
Yeah, it's the metaphor that I often use is, especially when referencing experiential learning, is like most of us know how to ride a bike, and when the time came to learn about bike riding, you didn't rush off to the library and pick up Bike Riding for Dummies. You didn't probably also rely heavily on whoever was mentoring you or teaching you to be able to help you be successful. You might have had a sibling or a parent who did their best to try to explain to you about holding your center of gravity and all of those pieces. It was not a book or a person that actually helped you learn how to bike ride. It was getting on the bike, and it was having that experience, and that the alchemy of your mind and your body working together to figure out what supported, what worked, what didn't, and sometimes having the experience of falling off. That whole piece around the greatest lessons is that didn't work, and it didn't support me, and I paid the consequence. The
Mhm.
skin knee, or the road rash, or however that was. And so then the willingness to get back on. So even though it felt like there was what would have been deemed as failure,
Mhm.
is that I learned what I needed to learn in the experience. And when I got back on, and I kept getting back on, it kept getting better and better and better. And that even if you think that is a learning style, is that if you books being the example, is, if I said, what was the last development book that you read? You'd probably remember the title, maybe even remember the author. But I said, what were the key lessons that you took from chapter 6? You might have a general view of what you remember, but you have no idea what chapter 6 was.
Yeah.
Or, the one-on-one mentorship pieces is that piece around um, wisdom and knowledge is being shared, and then how do I have that have applicability to my life? And so the group work for me is that piece of, not only am I learning to get on the bike and ride with
Mhm.
support, with somebody helping me inside of that, is that when I hit my blank spots or the blocks, that confused piece of when I, for example, as a facilitator, if I ask a question and somebody feels like they're stuck in I don't know, I don't know, is one of the worst places to go to in your growth and evolution, because then everything stops, nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so it's the piece of, if I'm present and listening, and we're doing similar work and we're all attracted to this, there's a frequency of the people that are drawn, that are really committed to their growth and evolution. It's not unusual that partway through the process, as you're sitting there, somebody shares an experience or shares one of their stories in the large group, and the light bulb goes on, and it's like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly what I was looking for. That
Mm-hmm.
was where the blind spot was, or the blank spot was, and your story just helped me make full connection to myself. And
Yes.
so that's not going to happen in a book, and it's less likely to happen in a mentorship or a coaching space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the piece of, I would definitely love your perspective, because in the beginning you mentioned when you were working with the women, and then they would come out of the home and go, and they felt isolated and lonely. And so when we get into this transformational work, again, how does that part play into whether or not we're going to be successful?
Mm. Well, I feel like, and this is true for all of our students, is one of, again, the greatest takeaways is community, and a
Mhm.
sense of tribe, and having people that are invested and enrolled in your success. And so,
Mhm.
sometimes the people in your life are not, I don't coach my family because they don't listen to me the same way. They're already filtering from the space of who they think I am,
Yeah.
and the image of who they've constructed to be in their minds. Whereas in the learning space, it's like we're all here to learn, and people will listen to me differently because they just see me as there with their best interest in my heart, and a desire to support them in their growth and evolution. And so when you get a group of people together and everyone's committed to that same thing, is then you start to see uh, that sense of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He talks about, at the very basic level, we all have similar needs. And the first level is that we all need food, water, and shelter. And
Yeah.
that if we don't have food, water, and shelter, it's very difficult to transform or ascend into anything.
Mhm.
Then security comes after that, which is, we want to know that those things are stable. So we want to know that the rug isn't going to be pulled out from underneath us. And it's then from that space, when that's managed, it isn't an automatic, now I'm into working on self-love and self-esteem and self-respect. It's belonging.
Mhm.
People often feel like, we hear the cliches of, you can't love anyone else until you've learned to love yourself. So we think we're supposed to have all of that internal work mastered. But if we trust Maslow and the science that has subsequently followed his work, is that doesn't happen until we get that sense of not just stability in food, water, and shelter, but stability and security, and having connection and community and people that have our back, and that we feel like we belong.
Mhm.
Then we can really dive into the self-esteem work, and then move up from self-esteem to self-actualization.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's that beautiful gift of building community at the same time that you're building self.
Yeah, yeah, community is so important, and especially if we don't have people in our lives who maybe are on the same trajectory, especially when we're finding ourselves like, oh my gosh, there's something is missing in my life, and I'm ready to venture into and discover myself, or maybe rediscover or reinvent myself, and I'm not surrounded by, maybe my children and my husband are not into it. It's so much easier if I have people in my life, friends or people in the community who are also committed to the work, then the success will follow. Um, how would you coach somebody or encourage somebody, a woman in her midlife, where she's dissatisfied, she knows there is more for her, and she's just afraid, because we are afraid of change. Like, that next level of greatness can be really, really scary. So how would you encourage somebody to, like, how can they go within to know that they're ready? Because I don't think we ever truly feel ready, but there is some work that we can do to get there.
I'll go to the idea of one. So we have 12 principles in our process, and principles around understanding cause and effect, accountability, and one of our principles is that piece around you know, find a mentor or a teacher, and then teach what you're learning.
Mhm.
And so inside of the is being in law of attraction is that understanding that if I just look at my results, if I just look at what I currently have,
Mhm.
sometimes we can then recognize that where the dissatisfaction or the gaps are, and it's
Mhm.
not wanting to focus on the gaps so much, because then we understand we're putting out that frequency, and law of attraction will just bring more of that. So if we focus on the negative and we are vibrating at that level, then it's not to be surprised when more negative things or people or situations come our way. It's recognizing that it's just pointing me in the direction of what's missing. And when I can identify what's missing, then I can start to look at what are the possibilities around how to fill those gaps and fill those spaces. And yes, nervousness might be there. You know, I have clients often use the word nerve sighted, is that, you know, you understand how nervousness shows up in your body or fear shows up in your body. You know, it's like your heart's pounding and your stomach's churning and your hands are sweating, but excitement shows up exact same way. Your
Mhm.
heart's pounding, your palms are sweating. So it's the mind that distinguishes between I'm afraid or I'm excited.
Mhm.
So when I recognize based on results what I have and can identify where it feels like the gaps are, and I seek out support, mentorship, or teachers, or programs, or others that are doing the work, and I move beyond the fear of change and the fear of something new, is
Mhm.
then I'm magnetizing differently. You know, it's like when I decided I wanted to learn about shamanism,
Mhm.
is it wasn't a deliberate, oh, I want to study shamanism.
Mm.
I was at a point in my life where I felt like there was a huge gap missing for me spiritually. I'd
Mm.
come an agnostic family, so not atheist. But
Mm.
my parents had no framework, no formal belief system. If I asked questions about, you know, any of it, they were like, "Well, there's probably something and or someone, but we don't know what that is, and frankly, we don't care."
Mhm.
And so, as a kid, I had, you know, one of my best friends growing up was a Jehovah Witness, so I had gone to temple with them, and I felt very oppressed. You know, I liked Easter and Halloween and all of those things. So I thought this is not the right space for me. Had a childhood friend who they were very religious in the Pentecostal process. I went to church with them, and then when I experienced them speaking in tongues, I got very afraid. So I felt like then as a young adult, I thought, well, you know, Buddhism looks attractive. Like, I think that's a great thing that maybe I'd like to try that. And then the idea of suffering, the Buddhist approach to suffering, and the idea of, you know, I'm not going to carry spiders out of my house. I find them abhorrent. I'm going to crush them. So therefore, I can't be a Buddhist. Um, and so I just felt like there was a huge
Yeah.
piece of that missing. And so
Mhm.
I had gone to see a psychic,
Mm.
literally had gone to just sort of see if she could help me in the
Mhm.
discovery of what was next and what was going to satisfy and fill me up. And Mosaic magazine, I don't know if you remember it, it used to be a print magazine, but it had a lot of, you know, sort of new age stuff in it. And I think now they're just digital, but I'm in her waiting room waiting for my psychic appointment so the psychic can tell me what to do. And I opened up the magazine, and it opened up to a program where the Institute for Shamanic Medicine was
Mm.
starting a shamanic coaching program where they
Wow.
were teaching shamanism and evolutional transformational coaching, and they put those two things together.
Mm. Mm.
And so I felt like I got my answer. I
Yeah.
still had an appointment with the psychic, but I felt like I had taken a picture of that piece of paper, that page in the magazine, and that launched an entire trajectory of now I teach those same courses that I was a student of. And so and you know, I get to experience sweat lodges, and I sit in ceremony all the time, and it's
Mm.
like that piece around, you know, the old saying of when the student is ready the teacher will appear. And
Yeah.
so that's that. I just knew that there was a pull. I didn't know the meat details or the mechanics, but I stayed true inside of me to this is an important part of my growth and evolution. And
Yeah.
literally the page opened to that
Yeah.
page.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that you share that, because sometimes those things are, it's like they fall in our lap literally, and it's like whether or not we're present enough to see it,
Am I
right?
paying attention?
Yeah, yeah. I would love for you to share your experience, because I've come to a conclusion now in my evolution, but I would love to hear your point of view on this. How important is spirituality? And that's, I'm not talking about religion but a spiritual connection to the process of transformation.
I mean, I am 100% an advocate of the concept of the medicine wheel inside of what I teach and what I live. And the medicine wheel is we're a body, a mind, an emotional being, and a spiritual being. And so oftentimes, there's this idea of we as humans will never achieve balance because we've got stress and we've got chaos and we've got all these things, and that the best we can do is mitigate it. And I just don't believe that's true. And to maintain balance, too often I feel like people will have something pop up that needs a lot of their attention. So they'll have a health crisis.
Mhm.
So they'll have something pop up where it's like, I need to focus all of my energy and attention on getting healthy, or they'll have an emotional crisis and or mental health issues. And it's like all of my energy and attention is going to that. Or people will become very single focused in the spirit side of things and bypass the paying attention to the others. They'll just give it over and let, you know, the sacred ones manage it all and stop doing what it is to be. You're still a spiritual being and you're a human, you're a spirit being having a human experience. You still need to do care for that.
Yeah.
So my piece is energy and attention every day goes into all four.
Mhm.
So care for, what am I feeding my mind? What am I reading? What am I looking at? What am I learning? The emotional piece, how vulnerable am I being? How authentic am I? How connected to my emotions and what I'm feeling is? What am I doing to do care, sleep,
Mhm.
diet, exercise, all of those pieces? And where am I making time every day to make a connection to my spirituality and to my faith, to my guides, to whatever that is? Doesn't
Mhm.
even matter, but there's something that connects me at the higher levels.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What's one thing that if people are exploring connection to spirituality and they don't know where to start, what's one thing that we could do that's simple that we can start exploring and connecting to that spiritual connection every day?
Well, we live in again, I'm at my age. One of the journeys for me was I happened to one of the women I worked with in the shelter on night shift, so we had a lot of time just to chat. She had a master's in theology, and so I was getting very quickly educated just by being a good student and listening. Uh,
Mhm.
Nowadays, you don't need to have, a human that can help you in the research. We have this beautiful thing called AI and or Google, whichever your preference is. And again, I feel like it's that just asking that question, it's how do you ask the questions? Because it's based on how you ask the questions, you get the answer.
Yeah.
Is that piece of what are sort of the top 10 spiritual faiths pathways that people follow,
Mhm.
and being willing to just, they don't have to go to spend weeks going to the Jehovah Witnesses. If that, they'll read about it, and if they don't
Mhm.
feel called to it,
Mhm.
and again, go to a Buddhist temple if that's the one that you're reading about, and you go, that feels like I'm interested. Or, I really want to experience more of the indigenous path or the shamanic path. It's again just that be curious,
Yeah.
and then ask the guided questions, and then follow that inner guidance system, your own GPS around what do I feel called to and how can I explore that further.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful. Yes, the intuition will lead. Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that you have an amazing gift for our audience as part of this event. I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the process that changed my life, which I now get to teach, actually has 4 levels to it. The first level is a 3-day process that really is intended to help people take that deep dive into their programming and into their self and belief systems and what they picked up along the way and how it's impacting and the effect it's having on their lives. It's very experientially driven. It's bike riding. There's some concepts, but it's definitely here's some ideas. Let's see how that applies to you.
Mhm.
And it normally retails for $597. That's what people pay, or they're invited by someone in their life to come in. And so it's an invitation for all of your viewers to have an experience of that. And I know you've got a bit of a global audience as well. So we do one a year that is a hybrid. So there will be some people in the physical space, and then there'll be online. So there's a few adaptions for people if they're doing the online piece, but they get, as much or as close to the full experience that you can live. I love live. I feel like humans being together is always amazing. And the world we live in, we actually have the benefit of being able to do the online piece as well. So yeah, so people have the opportunity to enroll in that. We call it the Earth Journey.
Beautiful. And underneath this interview, there is a button for you. So click on that. And the offer is you get it for just a price of seat fee to save your spot. So Rae-ann is gifting you this training. And I would highly, having gone through, not through integrity seminars, but another training that is in the same realm, that literally has been the thing that changed my life the most out of all the work that I've done. So I would highly, highly, highly encourage everybody to jump in on this. It'll blow your mind. So thank you so much.
And the seat deposit is just so that people, when you don't have any skin in the game, sometimes it's easy to get scared and decide I'm not going to show up. And then if somebody else has missed the opportunity, get through the program and that $100 comes back. So
yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Rae-ann, for sharing all of that, sharing your wisdom and your beautiful energy with us, and for your generous gift. And everyone, like I said, the button's underneath, so jump in on that right away. And we will see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.